So welcome this, and someone is got some, could you all mute yourselves, please? Who is not muted here? There we go. Oh, wonderful. This is the July overview of our pedagogy, our approach. My name's Katie Covey. I'm the Director of Religious Education for Soul Matters Sharing Circle, which you are all a part of. You must have gotten the email with our very first online packets that were distributed yesterday, and thank you for jumping on. So my purpose today is to give you the lowdown in real language so you don't have to wade through all of our pedagogy, all of our simple approach, and also allow you to ask some questions, since that's our very first packet that we've sent out using our approach to online RE. So it's not going to be anything brand new than what's in the packet, but sometimes I find it easier to understand when someone just tells me, and I don't have to read. So that's my purpose today. I am recording, so welcome to those of you who are going to be watching this recording on your own time, but also welcome to everyone who's here today. Looks like we've got at least 27 participants. That's wonderful. That means we're all working hard here in July, doesn't it? Trying to figure out what's going to happen in September. So I wanted to give you first a quote from John Roberto. I took a faith formation class with him way back 8 years ago. He's a Catholic religious educator, but he wrote the book literally called Faith Formation in the 21st Century. Some of you may have attended one of his workshops. He's addressing online RE, and I'm paying attention to what he's saying. Here's what he says: we are growing in the realization that the impact of the pandemic will not be a short-term experience. What they say is that God will give us the trust and the love to help us make it through. It was comforting to me because when I translate that to our language, I think of it as the spirit of life among us will create trust and love and help us get through this. So we have a motto. It's a mission statement for online RE now. We provide, that's for Soul Matters Online, multi-use building blocks to support 4 relationally based environments. I prefer ministries, so we called it environment/ministries, that encourage lead with strategies that build off each other and that are tied together by an actionable and thematic through line. That's our mission statement. That's what we're going to be putting in those packets. Now, this kind of complex teasing out of these pieces is important, and it's been done by all of you. We've had the confab, the unveiling, we had surveys out the wazoo in March and April. We had all kinds of discussions together, and from that we've created this pedagogy, which is just a word that means approach. We've created an approach. It has to be complex because the problem we're facing is complex. But what Soul Matters, what I and Scott and Teresa and Michelle are doing is translating it so that there can be a simple strategy that you can use for online church. We don't need more complexity. We need some simple strategies. So in that sense, I'm going to tease out each of those phrases for you. So the first part, multi-use building blocks that support the rest of the mission statement. These building blocks you might have seen if you got to peruse those packets. We call them introduce it, tell it and talk about it, meditate on it, explore it, and take it home. It's a bunch of it's, isn't it? But we thought we would be as succinct as possible. Introduce it. So these are the things you might use for a choral age, for your children's chapel, for the beginning of a small group if you want to do it that way. As you know, all these multi-use building blocks are being used by each of you in different ways. It might be used as a for all ages program as part of your big long Sunday service video, YouTube video, or online meeting, or streaming, or whatever permutation of online church you're going to be doing. It might be an invitation to the families to just join you for the introducing of this. And these are all short, aren't they? Because no one wants to be on Zoom like we have to be for hours and hours and hours. That's what multi-use building blocks means. So for the renewal packet, for instance, I'll try and be as applied as I can. But I am going to do another packet overview in August. We looked at the theme of renewal and we came up with 5 lenses that we want to put each of those building blocks in under. Recommit to community, which is our water communion. So renew yourself by recommitting to community and come to whatever permutation of water communion you're going to be doing this year. I have some suggestions in there, but I bet you among all you, oh, and 4 people are waiting in the waiting room, all you creative people, I'm sure there have your own ideas of how you're going to do a water service. So under the recommit repair part, you're going to say, okay, what's the introduce it? What's the tell it? What's the meditate on it? What's the explore it? And what's the take home? Then there's a repair, recommit to anti-racism. We're going to have that as a session, deliberate in every packet now this year because of what's happened in our society this summer. So again, under that angle, we're going to have the introduce it, the tell it, the meditate it, the explore it, and the take it home part. We're going to have a little section on repairing relationships. The idea is you renew yourself by repairing your relationships. For the littlest ones, we say, by saying you're sorry. That's how simple it is. And that, of course, is our connection to Yom Kippur, which takes place in September. Because we want our children to know that we are interested in other religions. And because it's September, and this is a good time to also teach Unitarian Universalism, we've included the first source and the first principle as our other 2 angles. The first source being the sense of wonder. Renew yourself by going out and watching the night sky this month. Watch the Pleiades, the 7 sisters. That kind of moment is very precious to me. I go to the desert almost every year as a retreat to renew myself by feeling humble against the universe that I see up in that desert sky. Admit Christina, there we go. And so that's our first source. And of course, our first principle, which we always do, is the inherent worth and dignity of each person. And that's renew yourself by loving who you are. So those of you who are practical may notice that there are 4 Sundays in September, and we've given you 5 sessions. The reason being, we understand that some of you start 3 Sundays before Labor Day. Some of you start 2. It depends on your school system. It depends on your your demographics, but this way you'll have a few more sessions to use, maybe in one of those August sessions. And if you're, by the way, if you're totally bereft of things to do this summer, you can buy an individual packet. So you might want to do beauty, or you buy a whole packet and get ideas for your summer program. Okay, so that's why there's 5 when there's only 4 Sundays. So feel free to choose and pick those multi-use building blocks. So that whole introduction is describing those multi-use building blocks. Now we'll go into the next part of the mission statement. To support 4 relationally based environments / ministries. If you came to the unveiling confab, you might have heard us say that we religious educators are now becoming more pastoral than we have been before, because we are the center of some of this presentation of what our faith is all about, instead of our volunteer teachers. We become much more in relationship with families and children, because I'm assuming you're going to be doing some of these introduction pieces. You're going to be talking to the kids, just like the teacher would have it as the children were sitting in a circle. So I call us and these ministries. The 4 ministries / environments, excuse the language, I'd go back and forth, are a leader to child ministry. That's what I was just talking about. You introducing the idea of renewing our work for anti-racism. You, or the minister, introducing our recommitment to community through the water communion. That's our leader to child. The next one is child to child. This is what we miss so much, isn't it? We don't get to see the kids playing on the playground together. And that might be the most important thing they do in religious education sometimes. But we try our hardest. We're going to try our hardest to provide a small group which allows that child-to-child relationship. So for me, that means a little bit of silliness, because there's children after all. And it means some fun stuff. It means shortness. Excuse me, Katie's iPhone, you need to mute your, I'm gonna just mute her, there we go. I have power. There we go. So child to child. Then the 3rd relationally based environments we're working with, which can be called ministries, is the family member to family member. So I'm visualizing us, religious educators, in the Unitarian Universalist faith as bringing the final home-based faith formation into fruition. We've tried, I mean, I had a 35-year career with churches, and I tried and I tried and I tried for 35 years. Now, here's our opportunity to make this home-based happen. So, rituals at home. For me, it's going to my Jewish relatives and watching the ritual of the Shabbat, bringing the flame into her heart. I want to do stuff like that with our UU families. That's the 3rd one. The 4th one is family to family connections. Again, this is like running together and let's go have dinner together. My family, when I was growing up UU, my dad and mom would always invite somebody to Sunday dinner with us. That was in the 60s and 70s. Family to family ministry is going to be so important for us to provide these opportunities so that families can get to know each other and to share things with each other. All right, that's the second part of the mission statement, 4 relationally based environments / ministries. This is the third part, that encourage lead with strategies. So this is one of the things I've enjoyed so much when I was writing this packet. What this means, and you might have heard us say this before, and I think it bears repeating, is that just like me sitting here talking, it's sort of like maybe it'll last through September, October, but it's not going to be that exciting because I'm just a talking head. Yeah. But what if you ask people to lead with you? You ask Sandy's mom, who's a chemist, to lead the science experiment you're going to do in small group with you. You ask the Joneses who do yoga. You ask a family that has too many zucchinis in their garden in September to show everyone who wants to come on the Zoom how they make the zucchini canoes that they've invented. Suddenly it gets like, oh, that's much more interesting than listening to Katie talk. Let's go see the Joneses make their zucchini canoes. So that's the lead with strategy. And then there was a creative visualization I wrote, walking down a path to find your inner voice. And you listen to it, and there's this whole little thing. What if you ask the person who is a hiker, who has the most magical voice, to read that for you? I mean, there it is. It's this beautiful moment. So that's what the lead with strategy is all about. The other analogy I'll give to you is that think about Mr. Rogers. It wasn't always him talking. He invited guests, didn't he? All those times that he had his show. So this is the whole Mr. Rogers guest analogy. And the last part is that we want to have them, let me make sure that's the last part. Oh, there's two last parts. We want to have them build off each other, passing the baton. So one of the things about online RE is it needs to be very clear. And I think this will help our faith because we haven't been really clear. You know, I had a little girl come up to me one day and say, Katie, I go to McDonald's to buy a hamburger. I go to the hardware store to buy a hammer. I come to church to what? What do you say to me, Katie? So let's be really clear about why they're coming online to Zoom. Because if we're not, they're going to be like, yeah, okay, another Zoom. But if we're really clear that you're going to see the zucchini canoe, that you're going to be renewed by making friends, that you're going to learn about being a person who is against racism. Let's be really clear about what the angle and the takeaway moment is. So what that means is you have this introduce it moment. Here's what we're doing as a faith right now. We're fighting racism. We want to dismantle this racism. Then you go into small group and you say to your people, let's do the littles, the pre-K first grade packet. You say, isn't it nice that we have differences? Let's everybody find a different kind of, and then fill in the blank, something red. Look at all the different reds. And this makes life beautiful to have differences. And then you're going to take that and you're going to suggest something that the family can do at home together. There's some beautiful story time online, which I've stuck in that packet, by the way. I can't help but talk about the packet because I'm an applied person, but they've gotten actors to read storybooks. So Oprah Winfrey is reading a beautiful story about some hula hooping stuff. Kevin Costner and a little girl are reading about, I think her name is Marcina's baseball dreams. You know, Kevin Costner, Field of Dreams and all that. And the little girl who's sitting beside him, helping him tell this story, which is a picture book story, is just as great as he is at presenting this story. So you can say to your families, here's this wonderful thing to watch. They don't have to try and get into the library to find that book. Okay, and then you take it home, and then you connect the families with a family to family. And what you do is say, what in your home calls to you in your fight against racism? How do you keep this in front of you? And go find it. Do a find and show. So everybody goes, finds the things. Is it a poster that someone took to a Black Lives Matter protest? Is it a storybook that someone just read together? Is it a picture of the people they're holding in their hearts? Is it even as simple as a magazine cover that they've been looking at and wondering about? So you have a show, find and show. It's like show and tell. So all those things are the through line that we're celebrating. All right, that's our through line. That's our mission statement. Now it's complex, but what we try to do is translate it into a simple structure. And one of the things that we did for this next year is to create 2 packets because of the differences we were hearing about the children and their response to Zoom meetings. A lot of you shared that Zoom just doesn't work with young kids. They're just not there listening to somebody talking on the screen and whatever. So we took the pre-K, kindergarten, and first graders, and we put them into one packet with suggestions for wording and some of the things which do work online. And then we put the 2nd through 5th graders in a second packet, and they're 2 full packets so that you can pretty much have this ready for your volunteers. It's the simplest way we could think of to give each of these groups a translation of this complex pedagogy. So there's a bear and butterfly puppet show in every one, because I do a puppet ministry. I just love puppet ministry. And I'll tell you that there's a young woman, 16 years old, in one of our Soul Matters congregations, the name is escaping me right now, who has been creating graphics and is posting them on a little website that she's made. So as soon as we get her stuff up, I'm going to send you those links. But she does the bear and butterfly puppet shows that I suggest. Let's see. So the 2 separate packets. So that's the age grouping. And someone emailed me yesterday that said, well, now I'll have like 2 4th graders and the rest of them are kindergarten and first graders. What should I do? Well, I would hit the younger group with that. Okay. Is there any, that's my introduction, by the way. That's what I wanted to go over this time. I'm going to read the chat really fast because it hasn't been up. Oh, I love John Roberto, yes. Okay. Okay, will there typically be 5 or just September? Mostly I do it according to the number of Sundays in that month. So October will have 4, the 5 months will have 5. I wanted to add a little to September so that there was a little flop over into August if you needed it. There's Storyline on Net. Thank you, Maria, for sharing Storyline on Net online. Okay, not a whole lot. Good, thank you. So now let's do questions. This part of the presentation is over because I wanted to just give you this verbal overview, and I sort of went through that all in 27 minutes. So feel free to unmute yourself, or, oh, there's another one. Leslie's asking again, will they typically include both a principal and a source? Well, good question. Each month, we try to do UU identity each month. Some aspect of UU identity will be there. Because we have so 8 principles and we've got 10 months, we probably won't have a principle in each month. We will, what do we have, 6 sources? And just so you know, this is Katie Covey's personal thing. I feel like Unitarian Universalism, history, and heritage should be one of our sources. I mean, because it should be. But anyway, so maybe I'll make 7 in there. So typically, probably, I can't promise everyone will have a principle and a source, but they will have a connection to UU identity. All right. Other questions? And feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to and share with us all. Everyone's just sort of blasted. All right. Or put it in the chat. I'd be glad to answer questions in the chat.
So I haven't gotten into the packets yet. Is that a complicated process? How do I go about doing that?
Yeah, good question. I'd be curious what people who have just started flipping through it might say to Judy. And I realize we just sent them out yesterday, so if you haven't gotten a chance, don't worry. Okay, what I would do is read my welcome. There's a review of Welcome to Online RE, and then there's a Welcome to Renewal. And then just start flipping through it. I don't know. I mean, I write it, so it's all in my brain now. So I would, if anyone else in past times, like I'll put somebody on the spot. No, I won't. How do you approach your packet when you look at it?
What my real question is, how do I get into the packet? This is my first time of buying the RE packet and getting a new password and all of that stuff.
Oh,
how do I
yes.
get to that?
Okay, so the packets as they're released, so we released it, renewal yesterday, get put up in your archive. And Susan will send you your little invitation, and you can create your own personal password. So we don't have a password, you have your password. And that way you can go in, and she's set, so let's say you subscribe to Crossing Paths, Soulful Home, and the core RE packet. And youth group, let's throw that one in too. So you've got 4 subscriptions, so you'll see all 4 highlighted. And you can just push those and go into the packets that way. And here's a little tip. We put these packets in PDF and Word. The PDF is the pretty formatting because it takes a picture of the screen that we've produced and puts it up as that picture. The Word gets a little wonky because everyone's Word document opens it up with different margins and different spacing according to your individual computer. So if you want to manipulate the packet in any way, use the Word. If you want to send it as is in a pretty way, send the PDF. That's a little trick, we know. So if you open up the Word and it looks wonky, please don't blame me. I worked hard trying to get it all pretty, and that's the PDF one. Does that help you, Judy? And I realized this password, we introduced it last year as sort of a soft start, but this year it really is happening. And so please feel free to email Susan. And she works for Soul Matters Saturday through Wednesday. She has another, I think it's Saturday through Wednesday. And Thursday, Friday, she has a different job. But it might be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That just dropped out of my brain. But she's all things subscription and membership. Good question, though. Any other questions about this big thing called Soul Matters RE packet?
I had asked in chat about, you said that you were recording this session, because I'm just on the committee and I was the only one who could make it today. But you said you were recording this, so where would it be available if others want to come?
There's a Soul Matters Sharing Circle YouTube channel. And if you search, make sure you say Soul Matters Sharing Circle. There's some other Soul Matters things out there that might get in your way. I'm also going to post it on the Facebook page. And the email that we sent out to, I don't know if that link made it in that email. We had to shorten it. There was just so much material in that email. I didn't want to just bomb everyone. There might be a link in that email at the bottom of the page, but I'm not sure. But it is the Soul Matters YouTube channel. Probably be up by tomorrow. Any other questions? Jean has her hand up.
Hi, Katie. I just had a question about the section that encourage lead with strategies. You had examples of lead with strategies, and then what were the other components? Family ministry and what else? Or family activity?
Family activity for building off each other. Is that what you were thinking of? The next one?
Yeah, I'm looking for the components under encourage lead with strategies. Were there components or did I miss that?
That was a pretty simple one. That was just talking about that idea of Mr. Rogers and Sandy's mom, who is a chemist. And then
Okay,
I moved into the next part below. Now that's good to clarify, which is building off each other and a through line. That's part of our mission statement. Yeah, good question.
Hi, I dropped a question in the chat because I want to say thank you. I think there's a lot of great ideas and content in here, but I've always got practical application on my mind in terms of, so how and when are people going to do these things? And I think that's kind of going to vary, but I'm wondering how much we might all benefit from one another's brainstorming on that aspect. So for example, given that most households may only have one device, maybe two, being able to do things simultaneously, a worship service for adults, a breakout for art, that's not practical. I don't see it happening. And then in terms of, I see a lot of people nodding their heads. So I don't think I need to go into a lot of detail here, but I do think that really the burning issue for most of us is how are we going to practically apply this?
And that's why we created a lot of building blocks. And that's a really good thing to open up right now. How are people thinking of applying this? And certainly, let's talk about this in the second Wednesday implementation August meeting for September specifically too. But for now, Rose has asked, let's see what people say.
My faith development programs for kids have been happening after worship service. So our service is from 10:30 to 11:30, and then we have like hospitality chat. And my faith development classes, in the spring at least, would start at noon, and I had 3 going on in the afternoon, one after the other. So there was no overlap. It made for a long day for me, but eventually I was able to hold, I would open the rooms and the teachers would take it over, and all I had to do was step in and say hi.
We found that we did our one of our groups at 4 o'clock. Talk about Mr. Rogers. That way parents had time to get dinner ready, but it left them the hunk of the day. I had one group starting at 2:30, and they said that just interrupted the whole day. They also weren't willing to be with their kids near the computer online after the service because it made it way too long for them to have open and staring at it. So it was a compromise. I'm still wrestling with what I'll do in September, but that's what worked for the spring COVID sheltering in place time. Yeah.
Jean.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. One of the things I remember from a former conference call when we were looking at the data that you had collected from DREs, and I have since implemented it, was to really educate parents around that younger group. That I remember you saying, we have discovered that it's not cognitively possible for the little ones to be at the computer alone. So if mom says, or dad, I'm going to do the dishes while they're at the computer, chances are it will not last. And that the young groups, you need to either have that kid on your lap or be side by side and doing the activity with them. And I'm doing a summer program right now, and we really have set the context for that. And it's working much, much better. In spring, I had kids that would watch Disney Frozen, and then they would come into this room, and there was no way to compete with it. So this way, we're sort of setting up some expectations of what works in terms of parent and in terms of asking them not to be watching videos before they come in. We can't compete with Disney.
Yeah. That's a good takeaway. Don't compete with Disney. Yeah. Thank you, Lynn. Also, I forgot to thank you for sharing that. That reminds me of what the Ogden, Utah church did a long time ago. They had a 4 o'clock meeting. That was their service time. This was way, 10 years ago. And for the Salt Lake group who skied all day, 4 o'clock was perfect because they'd come home and they'd turn on the church service. Or, well, I'm sorry, they go to church service. I'm still in online RE. And so maybe that's a magic hour. That's interesting. Yeah. Other comments, questions? Rose, that's a very good thing about that of asking. Thank you for bringing that up of when. And isn't it interesting? Are we going to continue Sunday morning because that's our traditional Protestant heritage, or is it going to turn into something different?
I'm curious along those same lines. Churches of, depending on where you are in the country, but churches of other denominations have the tradition of when they're meeting in person of Wednesday night. Mm-hmm. And I can recall we could never have soccer practice on Wednesday night because no one would come. And I didn't understand why for the longest time. So I'm curious, do people know if, so I was thinking a little bit about that. Do people know, are other churches of other denominations in your area doing things like still sticking to a Wednesday night schedule kind of thing, or has anybody heard? I was curious because that's one whenever I think about and always wanted to start a Wednesday night like dinner and then break out and do various things and choir and whatever and things for kids, and I've always wanted to do that. So now I'm wondering if
and I see Jen has her hand up. Jen J.
Yeah, and Reverend Claudia, I know, is on this meeting as well. She would have more to say about it if she wants to, but we have been doing a Wednesday Vespers program for 3 years now with mixed success, and it still is going on online. summer, I think it's a harder time, and it's multi-generational. It's not just family, but that's one of the things that we'll be experimenting with for the fall is doing a very family-focused event on a monthly basis. So in addition, probably to the Vespers, the Wednesday Vespers weekly thing happening, we'll have a monthly family fun and fellowship and some sort of spiritual grounding offering for the whole family or for multi-generational. So that I envision that we may use Soul Matters material for that. That would be an easy, use of it. So, but we haven't experimented with that before, and obviously not online. So.
And I saw Danielle, you went unmuted for a minute. Did you have a comment too?
It was going to be a lot of what Jen said, both Jenny and Jen, is that I think that's something we're going to experiment with is the Sunday worship. It's going to be more traditional, whereas Wednesday night is going to be, we're going to try to offer Wednesday night as being more family focused, shorter, kind of in the styles of a Vespers. And as someone who is a DRE and I wasn't going to Sunday services because I was over with the kids. I've started attending a few Wednesday night Vespers virtually, and I love it. I get so much from it. So I'm excited to start that.
Nice.
Katie.
Yes.
I thought our CRE, our coordinator, was going to be on here. I don't see her, but she started doing this instead of Sunday morning. She did a survey, and they're meeting Monday afternoon. It's a small group, but that was the consensus. That won't work if parents are at work later. But I guess right now there's a group that are at home or homeschooled or whatever. But
yeah, I mean, let's be creative. Certainly there's a balance between people have made space in their lives already on Sunday morning. But this idea that the world is our oyster. I mean, we could meet Monday afternoon or Friday evening, like a Shabbat service, or, there's always reasons that it might not work. But boy, let's be creative and try different things. Because now what if, we hear from our families, well, we don't want to have too much screen time for the children, and that's appropriate. But what if instead of watching the Disney video like Jean was describing, you went to church after dinner? Maybe that's screen time that's worth sharing.
I wonder if Kathy could say just a little something about dinner church and have you used it?
We have not used it yet. It's something we were exploring and had talked about doing before COVID started. The people, Aisha Hauser is one of the people that has initiated the movement in the UU world. And they're saying, well, go ahead and do it virtually. And my little RE team met last week, and they're hesitant to start it for the first time doing it virtually. So we're still in conversation about it. But I sent the link to the website in there so people can check it out and learn a little bit more. And I've seen some posts on Facebook. I don't remember if it was in the COVID RE Facebook page or Religious Educators page, but they're posting things occasionally in Facebook as well.
There's, yes. And actually, the young woman who used to be my RE assistant and youth advisor, Emily Conger, started a program. Her dinner church thing is called Nourish. And she's one of the posters on that Facebook page. Okay. I'm just scrolling through the chat. Good comments. There's Nourish UU. Thank you, Kathy. The problem, so I shouldn't say this, but man, when I get with my family and we're eating together, it's like, I just feel so crude when I'm stuffing my face with spaghetti or something and it's online. Okay, but anyway, I think sharing a meal would be lovely too. Other questions? One last question. Are we getting, yeah, there's Jean again. What do you have?
Just a quick question. I have yet to purchase it. I'm going to do it this week, but you mentioned an is it a monthly implementation meeting? And what day of the week does that usually happen?
Second Wednesdays is our lab. I call it a lab. It's a Zoom meeting for how we're going to implement the next month's theme and packet. So I usually give an overview of specifically the packet, and then we go into challenges and opportunities, and I do a fairly structured sharing with that. You know, 1.5 minutes, we ask for a timer of the challenges you're facing on the theme of renewal, then 1.5 minutes on the opportunities and what you're doing, and then we do takeaways.
And is that, for instance, for September, would that be in August?
Yes, so that's always the month before. Just in case you want to join us for the brainstorming lab, that's 2 months before. So we're going to jump in August. The first Wednesday is the brainstorming lab. That would be for November. So if you're interested in talking about your fun brainstorms for healing, that would be the first Wednesday. And then the implementation for the next month is the second Wednesday.
And that's also in August?
Also in August.
And what time are these?
These are always at 1 p.m. Eastern. That if you go backwards, that's 11 a.m. my time, Colorado, 12 Central Time, and 10 Pacific Time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I'm going to stop recording now, but I want to do a little closing.
Before you do, Katie, I want to say thank you to you and your team for, you know, jumping in and doing something innovative in the moment and putting all your efforts into it. I really appreciate it because I have felt overwhelmed. So kudos to all of you.
Thank you. It's been a wild ride to turn the business model upside down in 2 months, but I think we've got it. So September feels always like a new year. We renew our friendships, our activities, and there comes another year around. For me, this time has been a renewal of my confidence and joy in religious education. We can do this because of what we did together in these first few months of the pandemic. We have new approaches and new innovations. So let's share these possibilities together. And on behalf of the entire Soul Matters team, let the new year begin with confidence and joy. So thank you so much for joining us. And blessed be everyone.
Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Thank you.